Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Genius Knowledge Point, your go-to place for practical programming solutions for diploma, computer and IT students. If you are stuck on any practical assignment or just want to learn how to solve programs step by step, then you are in the right place. The main purpose of making this video is to provide practical knowledge to all diploma students so that they can develop their own programs which will be helpful for their future. So today's video is about practical number 5 of object oriented programming, that is under Diploma Computer IT third semester of K scheme. So in this practical we are going to define the function outside the class. So the main function of this practical is to define the function outside the class. So let us see the first question of exercise. Write a C++ program to declare a class staff having data members name, basic salary, DA, HRA, and calculate gross salary, accept and display data for one staff. So where DA is equal to 74.5% of basic, HRA is equal to 30% of basic, gross salary is equal to basic plus HRA plus DA. So these are the calculations that we have to make inside our calculation function. And what we have to do, we have to declare a class staff. We have to create one class staff, and the data members are given as, these are the member variables, that is name, basic salary, DA, HRA and gross salary. So these will be the member variables of your class. Then we have to accept data and display that data for one staff. So that will be the basic whatever is given inside the program. So let us understand its structure. So what we have to do, we have to declare a class, we have to define one class, that name is staff. Then the variables are name, basic salary, DA, HRA and gross. You can assume your names also. So I am assuming these names for my member variables. Then member functions will be accept and display. Then inside main we have to create one object and we have to call the member functions. So this is the basic structure, but extra what we have to do here, we have to define these member functions outside the class. So that is the main heading of our program or practical number 5. So we have to define the functions outside the class. So let us move to the coding part. Initially we have to include the header files similar to other programs that we have done in the previous practicals. Then we have to create a class. So class, that is my keyword, in space class name. So I am creating staff class, so that is given in the question. Then I am starting private access specifier. So private and colon, inside that private access specifier I am declaring some variables. So as given in the question, we have to declare the name variable. So name will be in the string format, that's why it will be the array of characters. So char space name and the size of array. So this is the string format of name. Then second, inside integer variable we have to accept the basic salary. So int basic salary. So this is the variable for basic salary. And the other parts are calculation parts. So DA, HRA and gross, that will be calculating using some formulas. So for that purpose we are taking these variables as float variables. So DA, HRA and gross is float values. Next we have to do the public access specifier. So public access specifier is opened. Then as we have to define the member functions outside the class, so here we cannot define them, we can declare them. So why we are declaring it here? Because the compiler will understand that this void accept data and void calculate sal, these functions are members of the class staff. Then only the compiler can define, or compiler will compile it properly. Otherwise it will consider these accept data and calculate sal functions as outside of the class members. So that's why we have to declare them to show the compiler that these are the members of class staff. So that's why they are declared here. So the definition of these functions will be outside the class. So how to do that? First we have to close the class, then we will start defining these two member functions which are declared inside the class. So how to define that outside the class? So we have to use void, that is the return type. Then we have to use the class name, because these are the members of class staff, so that's why we have to use the class name. Then double colons are entered. So these double colons are scope resolution operator that we have already done in practical number 2. So there also we have used the same method to define the member function outside the class. So same method is applied here. So void, class name, scope resolution operator, then the function name and a set of parameters. So the all return type, then function name and set of parameters should be same as declared inside the class, otherwise it will be the different function. That's why the same signature is used here. Then I'm starting the curly bracket of this accept data function. So as the name suggests, accept data will be accepting the values for this basic salary and name, because we are not accepting DA, HRA and gross, we are calculating them. So we will be accepting name and basic salary only. So I put a message, enter the staff name, then it is accepted in name variable. Then enter the second message, enter basic salary, accepted in basic underscore sal variable, and the accept data function is completed. Similarly, the second function is calculate sal function, so that we have to also define it outside the class. So void, that is return type, class name, then scope resolution operator, then function name and then set of parameters. So same signature is used here, and in this function we have to calculate the DA, HRA and gross, so that will be the calculation part, and finally all the calculation will be added into gross salary and that will be displayed. So first let us see how to calculate that. As the question is given, we have to calculate DA as 75.4% of basic salary. So this will be the numerator part and that is divided by 100. So whatever the basic salary is accepted, that will be multiplied by this number, and that total numerator will be divided by 100. So if you want to do implicit typecasting, you can put 100.00 here. So what it will do, it will divide the integer number divided by float number. So the final answer will be float value, and that will be accepted or stored into DA. Similarly, HRA can be calculated as 30% of basic salary. So 30 into basic sal, that is the numerator part, that's why putting it inside round brackets, and divided by 100. So that is the calculation part. So again I am putting float values, so it will convert it into float and HRA will be stored as float value. So finally the gross salary calculation is addition of all the three values, that is basic salary plus HRA plus DA. So it will calculate and store into gross, and the remaining part is to display all the values. So the cout message is displayed as staff details. So this is simple message. After that name is printed, and in front of that attaching the value of name variable, so name will be displayed here. Then basic salary, attaching the value of basic salary, that will be displayed. Then DA will be displayed, HRA will be displayed, and similarly gross salary will be displayed. So this is just a printing part. Whatever we have calculated, that we have printed here. So it will end the calculate sal function. So both the functions are defined properly outside the class, but these are the members of the class, that's why we have used scope resolution operator. So next we will move to the main function. So int main is defined. First we have to define one object of this class staff. So how I am doing this? Staff, that is class name space object name staff1, this is the object name, and this is class name. So the object is created. Using this object I am using or calling both the functions, that is accept data function and calculate sal function. So using this object I am calling accept data function. So at this step what will happen, the entire code will be run and it will accept name and basic salary, that will be stored in their respective variables, and after that I am calling the calculate sal function using same object. So what will happen, the code inside this function will be run and the calculation will be done and all the details will be displayed as it is given in the function. So finally the value is accepted and data is displayed. So we have put the get ch to hold the output screen, and finally ending the main function with return statement. So it will end the main function and the program has ended. So just selecting all, copying it, going to compiler, pasting it here, going to debug and run. So it is asking me enter the staff name. I'm putting random value EQRS. Then it is asking me to enter basic salary. So I'm putting 20,000. So it has calculated all the details, and the display function is showing all these details. So staff details, name is printed, basic salary is printed, DA is calculated, HR is calculated, and gross salary is calculated. So all the values are calculated and displayed using display function. So this ends your first question. Now the next question is inside the practical related question, that is write a program to find area of circle such that the class circle must have three functions, namely read to accept the radius from user, compute to calculate the area, and display for displaying the result. And we have to use scope resolution operator as our heading is defined, that is we have to define the function outside the class. We have to use the scope resolution operator. So let us understand the structure of this program. So what we have to do, first we have to create a class circle, and the member variables what we have to define, the variables will be radius, that will be the radius of circle, and as we are calculating area of circle, we need one more variable, that is area, to calculate area of that circle. So the radius and area will be the member variables. Then member functions will be read, as it is given in the question that we have to define these three functions: read to accept the radius, then compute to calculate the area, and display to display the result. So these are the three functions that we have to design. Then finally inside the main we have to create one object and call these member functions. Let us move to the coding part. So this will be the starting of the program, that is including both the header files iostream and conio.h. Then I am starting the definition of class circle. So class name, class is the keyword, circle is the class name. Then starting the class definition. So inside that I am opening public access specifier, and inside that I am first declaring both the variables. So the radius will be in int format. You can use float also. So int radius, then as the area will be calculated and that will be having fractional part, so that's why area variable will be having float data type. So the float area, so both the variables are declared. Then after that, as we have to use the function definition outside the class, so that's why we have to use this function declaration only. So void read, so this is the read function, it is declared. How it is declared? It is declared using semicolon. So we are not defining it, so the function declaration will be ending semicolon. So similarly compute and display functions are declared inside the class, so that the compiler will understand that these functions are members of circle class. So finally I am closing the class and ending it with semicolon, and after that we have to define these all the functions. So how to define it? We have already seen in the previous practical that void, that is the return type, then class name, that is circle, then scope resolution operator, then function name with set of parameters. As the parameters are not declared here, the same signature will be used here. So the read function parameter will be empty. Then opening of curly bracket, that is defining the function. So cout, enter the radius of circle, this is the simple message. So the user will understand that we have to enter radius value, and that value will be accepted inside variable radius. So radius is accepted using this read function. Second, we are defining compute function. So compute function definition will be the same, that is return type, class name, scope resolution operator, and function name with set of parameters. So inside that we are using area variable, that is the member of class circle, and the area value is float value. So the calculation will be 3.14, that is the pi value into square of radius. So how it will do? We will add radius into radius. So 3.14 into radius. So this will be the square of radius, that will be multiplied by 3.14, which is a float value, and that result will be the float value that will be stored into area variable. Next, we have to display that using display function. So same method is used here, void class name scope resolution operator, then display function name, and inside that I am just displaying the circle area. So the message is printed and attaching the value of area, that is area variable is attached here, and ending with endl. So the display function is also ended. So all the three functions are defined here. We can now go to main function to create object of that class and use that object. So inside main I have used clear screen. You can skip that also, it is optional. So if you want to clear the complete screen of your output, you can use this function. Then I am creating one object of the class, that is circle space C. So this is my object name C, and using this object I am using all the three functions. C.read, so the read function will be executed, then C.compute, then the compute function will be executed, and C.display, so the display function will be executed and all the values will be displayed. So the area will be displayed here, and finally ending with getCH. So getCH will be holding your output screen. And as I am using void main, so I have not added return statement here. So whenever you are defining a function using void, that means there is no return type, so the return statement will not be there. Finally closing the main function. So selecting all the code, copying it, going to compiler, pasting it here, going to debug, running it. It is asking me to enter the radius of circle. I am just putting a value, that is 15, and it has calculated the area of circle as 706.5. So it has used the implicit typecasting because the radius is entered as an integer number, but the calculation of area is done into float value. So it is used implicit typecasting. So this ends your question number 2. Now the next question is, define a class complex with data members real and imaginary, member functions read and write, write a program to perform the addition of two complex numbers and display the result. So we have to define a class complex, and it will be having two members, that is real and imaginary. So these are the member variables, and the member functions as read and write. So let us understand the structure of this program. So we have to define a class complex, so that will be my class name. The member variables will be real and imaginary. As you know, in mathematics, complex numbers are having two parts, that is real part and imaginary part. So for that purpose I am taking two variables, that is real and img. The member functions as given in the question, read and write. So read will be accepting the values and write will be displaying the values. So to add the complex numbers, how to do that? We have to understand it using the diagram. So let us see this diagrammatically. So this is my complex class. So it is having one object, that is C1. So whenever I am creating one object C1, so it is having two variables, that is real and imaginary. So inside C1 I have real part and imaginary part, that means two variables are there. So using this C1 I have created only one complex number, but our question is we have to add two complex numbers and display them. So for that purpose I have to use one more object, so that is I am creating as C2. So C2 will be having C2's real part and C2's imaginary part. So if you see, this real is different from this real because it is inside C1. So this is the variable of C1 object, and this variable is of C2 object. So both the variables are different, their memory locations are different, and their values are different. So if you see in the computer, this real will not be same as this real. Similarly for imaginary part, so C1's real and C2's real are different. Similarly C1's imaginary and C2's imaginary are different. So C1 and C2 are representing two complex numbers. So we have to add them. So for that purpose we need one more complex number, that is C3. If you see, C3 will be again having same real and imaginary part, so that will be different from both these two objects. So that real and that imaginary we have to add inside C3's real and C3's imaginary. So if you see the formula will be C3's real is equal to C1's real plus C2's real. So whatever is inside C1's real variable and C2's real variable, that will be added, and that addition will be stored into C3's real variable. Similarly for imaginary part, C3's imaginary is equal to C1's imaginary plus C2's imaginary. So this will be the addition of two complex numbers and storing their addition into third complex number. So this is how we have to declare the structure of this program, and we have to declare the objects of the class, because till now we have used only one object of every class and we have called the member functions and member variables. But in this program, this entire class is representing one complex number and these objects are representing one complex number. C2 is representing another complex number and C3 is used for addition of both C1 and C2. This is the basic structure of this program. So let us move to the coding part. So initially we have to use both the header files, then class definition will start class complex, that is the class name, then opening curly bracket, starting the public access specifier, declaring both the variables, that is int real and int img, so as requested in the question. And as we are using the function definition outside the class, we have to declare the read and write functions. So I am declaring it using semicolon. So void read and semicolon, void write semicolon. So this is the declaration part. Then class is closed, semicolon is entered. Then after that we have to define these two member functions. So the same method is used as used in the previous practical. Void, then class name, scope resolution operator, then function. So inside that function I am just putting a message, enter real part. That real part will be accepted into real variable. Similarly for imaginary part, and that will be accepted into img variable. So both the real and imaginary part is accepted here, and that is for one object. That means that is for one complex number it is accepted. Then finally we have to define the write function. Again the same method is used, return type, then class name, scope resolution operator, and function name. So the function is defined as, I am just putting the output messages, that is cout, real part attaching real value. Similarly for imaginary part, attaching imaginary value. So the write function will be displaying real and imaginary part. Then the function is closed. Then moving to the main function, that is void main. You can use int main also. Then clr scr to clear the output screen. Now as we have seen in the structure, that is we have to create three objects of complex. So I have created complex, that is class name, C1, C2, C3. So how to create these multiple objects? These are separated by commas. C1 is one object, C2 is second object, C3 is third object. Then I am entering a message, enter complex number 1, then calling the read function for C1 object. So what it will do? It will run this read function, it will accept real and imaginary, and this real and imaginary will be stored inside C1. So this real and imaginary will be C1's real and imaginary. Similarly for second complex number, enter the complex number 2. This is the message. Again calling C2's read function. So it will be reading the values for real and imaginary, and that values will be stored into C2's real and imaginary part. So C1 is accepted, C2 is accepted, both the complex number are accepted here. Now the calculation part is done. C3 dot real, that means C3's real part is equal to C1 dot real plus C2 dot real. So as we have seen in the diagram, C1 dot real plus C2 dot real will be addition of C1's real number and C2's real number, and that addition will be stored into C3's real number. Similarly for imaginary part, C1's imaginary plus C2's imaginary will be added, that will be stored into C3's imaginary part. And finally I am putting a message, addition of two complex number is, and I am using C3 dot write. So this will call the write function, but it will be calling on C3 object. So what it will do, whatever the real and imaginary values are stored inside C3, that will be displayed. So at this location, this function will be called, and it will be displaying real and imaginary part. But as I am calling this function on C3 object, it will be displaying the values of C3 object. So C3's real and imaginary will be displayed, and that will be the addition of these two, C1 and C2. So finally C3 has displayed the output. Get ch is there to hold the output screen. Main is closed. So just selecting all, copying the entire code, going to compiler, creating a new file, pasting the all code here, going to debug and running the code. So first it is asking me to enter complex number 1. So I am entering the real part of first complex number. So I am just putting any value 23. Enter imaginary part. So again it is asking me to enter imaginary part of complex number 1. Just entering some value. So the second complex number is asking me to enter real part. So just entering value. Again putting in imaginary part. So both the complex numbers are accepted. This is the C1, this is C2, and for C3 it has done calculation as real part is equal to 68 and imaginary part as 25. So if you see the addition of real part 23 and 45, so that will be 68. Similarly for addition of imaginary part of C1 and imaginary part of C2, that is 10 plus 15, that is 25. So this is the C3, that is addition of two complex number, and it is printed as real part and imaginary part. So this has printed the addition, and this has completed the question as well as the practical number 5. So that's it for today's practical. I hope this helped you understand the solution clearly. Code for this practical is available at the link given in the description. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more such diploma level programming solutions. If you have any doubts or need solutions for other programs, drop a comment below. I will be happy to help. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching and happy coding.